Very good morning. Welcome to the Breakfast News on Rajya Sabha TV. This is Saturday morning. I'm Ashwarya with you. Let us start the Breakfast News with the top headlines. Second day of informal summit between Prime Minister Modi and Xi Jinping in Mamallapuram today. Delegation level talks to be also held today. India and China resolved to jointly combat terrorism and radicalization. Prime Minister Modi and Xi also discussed the trade and investment opportunities. Chinese President promises to work closely with India for economic development of both nations. Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu calls for intensified fight against terror. In his address to the Comoros Parliament, announces a $20 million line of credit to boost bilateral defense and maritime cooperation. Also accorded Comoros' highest civilian honor, the Order of the Green Crescent. Number of income tax payers up by 14.4% to 84.5 million in 2018-19 assessment year. Forex reserves at a new high of $437.83 billion. And MC Mary Kom to take on Turkey's Busenas Kalroglu in the semi-finals of the Women's World Boxing Championship. Jamuna Boro, Manju Rani and Lovelina Bogarain also in the semi-finals in various categories. The top story is the visit of a Chinese President Xi Jinping to India. The informal meeting between Prime Minister Modi and Chinese President Xi Jinping will be our top focus on Rajya Sabha TV all day today. We'll be bringing you live coverage of all the details from Mamallapuram. Well, informal meeting between Prime Minister Modi and Chinese President Xi Jinping will continue on the second day at Mamallapuram today. The two leaders will hold a one-on-one informal meet at the Taj Fisherman's Cove Resort and Spa, followed by delegation-level talks. Both sides will issue separate statements on the outcome of the summit. Trade and terrorism dominated the talks on Friday between the two leaders over dinner hosted by Prime Minister Modi. The leaders vowed to jointly combat terrorism and radicalization during the 2.5-hour open and cordial one-on-one discussion over dinner. They also deliberated on trade and economic issues with a focus on identifying new areas for investment and enhancing trade volume.
Some of the other topics included the challenges that both countries face on account of terrorism. There was an acknowledgement that both countries are very complex, they are very diverse. Both leaders said that these were large countries and that radicalization was a matter of concern to both, and that both would work together to see that radicalization and terrorism did not affect the fabric of our multicultural, multi-ethnic, multi-religious societies. And there was a general sense that both leaders had that this was a common challenge that we face and that we will work together to overcome it. Broadly, today's discussion focused on the national visions and on how to progress bilateral relations. The two leaders had a detailed discussion on their respective national visions, on their governance priorities. The Prime Minister explained that having been recently re-elected to a second term, he had received a renewed mandate for economic development. And President Xi Jinping, of course, while acknowledging that Prime Minister had got a mandate, said that he was looking forward to working very closely with the Prime Minister on all issues during the next 4.5 years. They also spoke about other developmental priorities. In particular, there was some discussion on trade-related issues, on economic issues, on trying to identify areas for investment that the two countries could to encourage, and also on how to enhance the trade volume and the trade value. And in this also obviously included the issue of the trade deficit that exists and the unbalanced trade that exists.
Remember, President Xi arrived in Chennai on Friday on a two-day visit for his second informal meeting with Prime Minister Modi. Prime Minister Modi took Chinese President Xi Jinping on a guided tour of the UNESCO-declared heritage monuments at Mamallapuram. Clad in the Tamilian attire of a white dhoti, white shirt and an angvastram, Prime Minister Modi received Xi Jinping at Arjuna's penance from where the tour started. This was followed by visits to Krishna's Ball, the Pancharath and Shore Temple. The Prime Minister was seen explaining to the Chinese leader the historical significance of the monuments. Both leaders also sat at a Pancharath and discussed many things in a very comfortable environment. And from Pancharath, both leaders visited the beautifully lit up Shore Temple, a symbol of cultural heritage of the Pallav dynasty. Prime Minister Modi and President Xi were joined by top delegates of both sides. Both the leaders and delegates sat for a cultural event organized by the Chennai-based Kalashya Foundation. Prime Minister Modi also gifted a branched lamp and also a painting to the Chinese president. And let's get all the updates. Our colleague Kriti Mishra is now joining us for more details from Mamallapuram. A very good morning, Kriti. So we saw Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Xi Jinping bonding yesterday over the tour of the temples of Mamallapuram, followed by the cultural programs and also a dinner that went beyond the scheduled time. And today the leaders will hold their second round of informal talks. This will be followed by delegation level talks. What can we expect from these informal talks as well as the delegation level talks?
Well, absolutely, Aishwarya. We do remember the spectacular visuals of bonhomie between the two world leaders in Mamallapuram. And also yesterday, these two leaders held talks on wide gamut of issues. Now, today, delegation level talks are extremely important because remember, India is pushing for market access for IT and pharma products in China to ensure that the trade deficit between the two countries becomes more sustainable. Because remember, Aishwarya, in the year 2018-19, the trade deficit between India and China was around $50 billion. So India is looking for greater exports in Chinese market as far as the Indian products are concerned. India is also looking for investment, greater Chinese investment in India. There's another important issue that may figure, which is the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, wherein India wants to protect the interest by not getting the cheaper goods dumped and also reaping the benefits of free trade. So these are the important trade talks that may figure in, and also about Asian growth, because it is expected that after the 19th century, it is in 21st century that Asia's economic growth would transcend the world growth in terms of purchasing power parity. And India and China are certainly the drivers of growth of Asian economy. So that is another important issue that would be discussed. Yesterday also the two leaders discussed about the perils of radicalization and the perils of radicalization in a plural society, and also about combating terrorism. So these are also important global factors and global discussions that may figure in the discussion between the two sides. And also importantly, the bilateral, the historical and the cultural ties and the people-to-people connect and peaceful resolution, and also confidence building measures between the two sides as far as the boundary issues are concerned. So a very important delegation level talks between India and China in Mamallapuram today. Aishwarya?
Absolutely. And yesterday we saw the two leaders touched upon a range of issues, including that of terrorism and trade deficit. And we probably will see those key issues figuring also in the delegation level talks today. Thank you so much, Kriti, for all those updates. So you keep tracking all those developments in Mamallapuram. We'll keep coming back to you. And this morning, Prime Minister Narendra Modi was seen blogging at a beach in Mamallapuram ahead of continuing informal talks with Chinese President Xi Jinping. In a tweet, Prime Minister Modi said that let us ensure that our public places are clean and tidy and also ensure that we remain fit and healthy. After launching the Swachh Bharat mission, which has gained a lot of momentum pan-India, Prime Minister Modi has been reiterating and asking the citizens to participate in the program with great enthusiasm. All right, let's get to some other news now. Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu, who is on a two-nation Africa tour, will today embark on the second leg of his visit to Sierra Leone. Tomorrow, Vice President Naidu will meet with the President of the Republic of Sierra Leone, and later he will hold delegation-level talks with him, after which several agreements will be signed between both the sides. Vice President Naidu will also address the Indian community here. And on 14th of October, he will meet with the Speaker of Parliament. Now, this is the second visit to Africa of the Vice President. And before this, in November 2018, he had also toured Botswana, Zimbabwe and Malawi for strengthening ties with these African nations. And yesterday, Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu held delegation-level talks with the President of the Union of Comoros at the Presidential Palace on Friday. And reiterating India's cooperation and friendship, he said that India would continue to enhance its ties with the island nation. Both leaders also witnessed the signing of important MOUs in the areas of defense, health and medicines.
In a bid to enhance cooperation and share the fruits of our developmental experience with the friendly government and the people of Comoros, Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu held delegation-level talks with the President of Comoros, Mr. Azali Assoumani, at the Presidential Palace in Moroni. An MOU to strengthen defense cooperation and help in maritime security and another on cooperation in the field of health and medicines was signed.
I thank the President, Sri Azali Assoumani, for the Comoros support in our common fight against terrorism, because terrorism is the enemy of humanity, and also their support for the reforms in the Security Council and its continued support to India's candidature for a permanent seat in the United Nations Security Council.
Addressing the media, both leaders reiterated their commitment to strengthening bilateral ties and cooperation on matters of importance such as climate change, terrorism and others.
President Azali and I were happy to witness signing of some important agreements. We have signed MOU on defense cooperation. We have signed important agreements on health and culture. We have decided to exempt each other from visa requirement for the holders of diplomatic and official passport for short visits. Let me share with you, Comorian citizens have already been granted a visa facility by Government of India.
Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu held high-level delegation talks with the President of Comoros, and both the leaders have agreed to extend cooperation in all international issues, including climate change and terrorism. The leaders also witnessed signing of MOUs in field of defense cooperation and maritime cooperation, apart from another MOU in providing medicines and healthcare. Shri Naidu also recollected Mahatma Gandhi's connection to Africa and reiterated India's cooperation and friendship to the island nation of Comoros. With camera person Sanjay Kumar, Rajkamal Rao, Rajya Sabha TV.
And Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu also addressed the Parliament of Comoros on Friday, and he said that India was willing to partner with Comoros and supplement the country's efforts to neutralize threats from piracy, terror and maritime domains, as well as cross-border transnational crimes. The Vice President said that with cooperation, friendship and dialogue, the two nations could work for the welfare of people.
My dear parliamentarians and also the elite of this great country, terrorism is enemy of humanity. It has no religion, it has no region. And we must all come together to isolate the forces of terror and stop terror funding. by such organizations.
And talking about Mahatma Gandhi's 150th birth anniversary and his role in India's freedom movement, the Vice President said that Mahatma Gandhi has left behind a lasting legacy of peace and non-violence for the entire humanity, and said that he was a bridge that connects our continents.
My government have made a conscious effort to reach out to our African sisters and brothers, reinforcing a long-standing and broad-based support which I have always enjoyed in Africa. Our support to Africa, as well as our lines of credit and buyer's credit scheme, have been driven by your requirements and your priorities. Currently, nearly 181 projects in 41 African countries of $11 billion are being implemented with our lines of credit.
Meanwhile, the Vice President also announced on Friday that India will extend a line of credit of $20 million for Comoros for strengthening bilateral defense and maritime cooperation.
Both sides signed an MOU on defense cooperation. India also announced a grant of $2 million as a gift for interceptor boats to Comoros and a line of credit of $20 million for procurement of high-speed interceptor boats. Both sides vow to fight terrorism in all its forms and manifestations. In this context, the Honorable Vice President thanked Comoros for their condemnation of the terror attacks against the Indian security forces in Pulwama in February this year.
And in an extraordinary gesture of friendship, the Comorian president also conferred the Order of the Green Crescent, the highest civilian honor, to Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu on Friday. The Vice President thanked the host country for the gesture, and he said that he would accept on behalf of 1.3 billion Indians. Venkaiah Naidu also announced that India will be gifting medicines and medical equipment worth $1 million for transport vehicles and $2 million for the procurement of high-speed interceptor boats and 1,000 MT of rice. The Vice President also announced a line of credit of $41.6 million for setting up of an 18-megawatt power plant in Moroni and a vocational training center.
I accept it with utmost humility on behalf of the 1.3 billion Indians. I truly believe it as an honor you have acceded to India. Accorded to India, I am touched by your extraordinary gesture.
And now let's get you all the election-related news from the battleground of Maharashtra and Haryana. Let's first get you all of the election-related news from the state of Haryana, where campaigning is on in full swing. Well, the BJP will release its vision document for Haryana tomorrow, and for its manifesto, the party has received over 1 lakh suggestions from the public. Union Minister J.P. Nadda and Chief Minister Manohar Lal Khattar will be present at the launch of the manifesto. And now, time to get you all the news from Maharashtra now. And continuing with our special focus on assembly elections here, we take a look at the Konkan region today, known as the Little Slice of Paradise, situated in the picturesque Western Ghats. The region's 5 districts are gearing up for a contest between the BJP Shiv Sena alliance and the Congress NCP combined. But the bigger battle is within the BJP Shiv Sena alliance, which has set aside its poll pact for the Kankavli seat. Both parties are also facing severe infighting over the distribution of tickets.
Fresh from the electoral success of the recently concluded Lok Sabha elections, BJP and Shiv Sena leaders campaign in Maharashtra to further better their tally for the assembly polls later this month. Both parties have forged a pact for the assembly election, but the allies find themselves on either side of the fence on the Kankavali seat in Konkan's Sindhudurg district. This is the seat from where the BJP fielded Nitesh Rane, son of former Maharashtra Chief Minister Narayan Rane, against the wishes of the Sena. The Sena has been at loggerheads with Narayan Rane, who left the party to join the Congress in 2005. Nitesh Rane, who recently left the Congress and joined the BJP, is now pitted against Shiv Sena candidate Satish Sawant. Incidentally, Rane is the sitting MLA from Kankavali, which he won in 2014 on a Congress ticket. Unhappy with the seat-sharing arrangement, Sena and BJP rebels are also battling it out in other constituencies. The Konkan region is spread over 39 seats in 5 districts. With 18 assembly seats, Thane sends maximum number of MLAs from the region, followed by Raigad with 7 seats, Palghar with 6 seats, Ratnagiri 5 and Sindhudurg 3 seats. In the last assembly election in 2014, the Shiv Sena bagged a maximum of 14 seats in the region, followed by the BJP with 10 seats. Both parties, which had fought the elections separately, gained 5 seats each from 2009. The NCP won 8 seats but lost 2 seats from 2009. The Congress, however, managed to win only 1 seat, losing 2 seats from 2009. This time, the Sena is contesting on 124 out of the total 288 constituencies in alliance with the BJP, which has nominated candidates for 150 seats. The rest of the seats are allotted to smaller allies from the BJP's quota. Congress and NCP are contesting on 125 seats each, while the remaining 38 seats will be distributed among smaller parties. However, the rebellion within the BJP and Shiv Sena alliance could impact the poll prospects in some cases, giving an edge to the opposition. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
All right, let's get to some other news now. The number of income tax payers saw a rise of almost 14% in the assessment year 2018-19. The number of taxpayers rose to 84.5 million in 2018-19. The data also showed that since the rollout of the GST in 2017, the share of income tax in the central government's total tax receipts has also gone up. Now, as per tax returns data released by the Revenue Department, the number of crorepati taxpayers has shot up to 20% to 97,689 during the assessment year 2018-19. Time for all the sporting action, and 6-time world champion MC Mary Kom is leading India's charge in the semi-finals of the 8th Women's World Boxing Championships in Russia. Mary Kom will take on second-seeded Turkish boxer Businaz Kakroglu in her semi-final bout today in the 51-kilogram category. And earlier she registered a 5-0 unanimous victory against Ingrid Valencia of Colombia in the 51 kg flyweight category to enter the semi-finals at the Women's World Boxing Championships. And apart from her, Lovlina Bogorin, Jamuna Boro and Manju Rani will also all look to reach the finals in the AIBA Women's World Boxing Championships. And in more sports news, Dudi Chand smashed her own national record on the way to gold at the National Open Athletics Championships going on in Ranchi on Friday. Dudi Chand completed the 100 meters sprint in 11.22 seconds in the semi-finals of the National Open Athletics Championships. She later clocked 11.25 seconds in the final to claim the gold medal. The previous national record was 11.26 seconds, held jointly by Dudi Chand and Rachita Mistry. And with this win, Dudi Chand has moved closer to the 2020 Tokyo Olympics qualification mark of 11.15 seconds for the 100 meters event, as the qualification period ends in June 2020. And that is the wrap on this edition of Breakfast News. Thanks for watching. Have a great day ahead.